I think one of the funniest stories to me, oh my God. So I was working in a record store and we got in a collection. Well, we had to go to his house. This very strange dude who had the best heavy psych collection, obscure garage and psych kind of bands I have ever seen in my life. You know, original 13th floor elevators, just all of that kind of stuff. Toe Fat, just a bunch of stuff I had never heard of. Anyway, the records were in good condition. Some of the covers were, a little beat used, but overall it was a fantastic collection. And the owner of the store negotiated and we got that collection. However, the gentleman's name was Skip, and he wrote his name on every single cover. So it said Skip,
Oh no.
which is not a word that you want to see on a record cover, because I literally had hundreds of conversations with people coming in and going, "Oh, I was really looking for that Toe Fat album. Oh, does it skip?" I'd be like, "Oh, no."
Oh
The guy who owned it
no.
was named Skip, and he wrote his name over and over and over and over and over. It was hilarious. It got to the point where I was just like, well, okay, sure. All right.
I am very excited to introduce my guest on today's episode, Kudani, a professional photographer who has also worked in various record stores and has been collecting records since the 70s, which is the primary subject of her TikTok account. Kudani is a prominent TikToker within the vinyl talk subculture, posting videos about records in her collection, new finds, stories about bands, and other music-related trivia. I'd been following for a while now and wanted to get her pick for an opening track. After tackling the challenge and narrowing down her list, she picked Thieves by the industrial band Ministry off of The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. Let's make a mixtape. Kudani, thank you so much for joining me and helping to make this season 1 mixtape of opening tracks. Your selection was Thieves by Ministry off of their record, The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. The X-ray cover. Of course, you can't see this in audio-only podcast land, but Kudani is indeed holding up one of her copies of The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste.
I found out that this x-ray was actually one of the bandmates' mother's x-ray. And he got it because she's got a plate in her head. And I think the rest of the band members were like, absolutely not. And he was like, absolutely. So, yeah, this is somebody's mom's.
I know we're talking about industrial, but that is pretty metal.
That is... Well, this album is pretty metal. I mean, it is industrial, but we go pretty metal with this one. So
Yeah. So tell me, why are you picking Thieves for the opening track mixtape?
Man, I struggled because I came up with so many really good first songs, but it was my immediate first thought. So I thought I
Okay.
would go with my gut instinct.
Yeah, you gotta.
Because that song just absolutely rips.
I haven't taken a huge dive into Ministry, so this was a good excuse to do that. I like the Full Metal Jacket samples that they've thrown in there.
Arlie Emery's, yeah.
And so you have that actual record. When did you pick that one up?
This one is actually a repress. I have an original somewhere, but this is what was this? Master disc it's a numbered reissue, limited edition one. I got into Ministry with Sympathy, their very first album, which is a straight up synth pop dance thing that a lot of people who know Ministry don't know that album. But I loved that album. We used to listen to them and listen to the songs in the clubs, kind of, the gothy, dark wave clubs in the 80s. And then I just kind of followed him, and the music changed drastically over the years. And by the time we got to this, I was 19. and I had already been into them and seen them. And then when this hit, our minds were just like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And then I followed them on this tour.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, they toured in 89 to 90. So I saw them in Austin and then came to Dallas. And then I went up to Tulsa, which I had lived in Tulsa before. So I had friends up there. So I followed them 3 shows in a row over the course of like 4 or 5 days for this.
That's awesome. What was that experience? Had you done that for any other bands?
I did that with White Zombie. With 3 shows in a row, though, probably not. 2 shows pretty frequently, like Jesus Lizard, I mean, even Duran Duran, stuff like that. But this is the one that I followed the most, or the longest. The tour for this album, The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste, they recorded a bunch of those sessions. You can watch the videos on YouTube. And an album came out of it, a live album called In Case You Didn't Feel Like Showing Up, from these sessions. And I was pretty much covered head to toe in bruises by the end of that. From those pits were some of the most intense pits I've ever been in. Just covered. Worth it though, because they had like a chicken wire fence and double drummers. Martin Atkins came in from Pigface, as well as their original drummer Bill Rieflin, and people were climbing up the chicken wire and stage diving off of it and throwing things. It was pure mayhem and totally awesome.
That is wild. I
Yeah.
love a good double drummer set.
Yeah, them and Melvins whenever Melvins do double drummers, and Butthole Surfers when King Coffee and Teresa Nervosa would do double drummings. Those are my 3 favorites. Yeah.
I saw the OCs, or I don't remember which version of the
Oh,
OCs they were going under, but I saw them a few years back and they had a double drummer situation going. It was incredible to watch them. Yeah.
that's so cool. I've never seen them, and I love the OCs. I know, it changes up pretty drastically here and there with the lineup and the music, but man, that would be cool.
It was a really tight show, and the thing that really stuck with me as I was watching them, one of the drummer's kits fell apart a little bit. Like there was something wrong with it, but the band didn't miss a beat. It was such a professional recovery. Like the drummer I think kept going to some degree, but you could tell he was fixing something and the band just vamped and let him recover. It was flawless. You couldn't tell that there was anything wrong, and that was just excellent. Similar thing happened with Damen Gang. Not a double drummer situation, but one of his floor toms fell over and he just overcompensated and put one hell of a performance on for that song while his floor tom was just falling over. It was
Yeah,
incredible.
a good recovery is amazing when it's a good tight band and they all just
Mm-hmm.
kind of rally around and get stuff done and you can barely
Yeah.
even tell. Yeah, it's very, very cool. I've seen quite a few of those. I mean, even Gibby Haynes with Butthole Surfers,
Mm-hmm.
he would destroy things on stage and they would all just keep going. He'd be like hitting things with a mallet and everybody's just
Yeah.
like playing around him, recovering whatever he's destroying on stage with the double
Mm-hmm.
drummers too. So, yeah, impressive.
Amazing. I love it. So I guess going back to Ministry, what about Thieves really brings you into that record? Why do you think it works so well as the opening track to that album?
I think, there's like an immediate tense. It's immediately very tense right off the bat. It's kind of a staccato beginning and opening, and you're like, what is about to happen? And then it just slams you full force into that song. And, at that point, having already been a big Ministry fan and listening to them go from synth pop to synthy kind of industrial to this one, which is also industrial but with metal. It's like thrashier guitars, but you could tell the band had been together long enough that the song is super, super tight, even though it's like a very controlled chaos, is what it is. Yeah, it just immediately sucks you in. And then I like that kind of sneaky, and then all of a sudden you're on fire.
Do you remember if they opened that tour that you saw with Thieves, or did they have a different opening track for their set?
They Thieves was further in.
Interesting. Okay.
I feel like it was. And I can't remember if the set lists were the same for each one of those, but I feel like Thieves was further in. But the crowd just absolutely lost their mind. And that was when the pit would absolutely explode. And KMFDM was the opening band for the shows that I saw anyway. So everybody was already pumped up on some industrial. I would have to check the set list, but I'm pretty sure that it was further into the set.
In the episodes that I've recorded, it's interesting to see the different camps of what makes a good opening song for a record, and does that song translate into an opening song for a set or no. And so it's interesting to see the difference with this one too, where it was more in the middle of a set.
I feel like I could be wrong because I am old and have seen too many shows. So my memory might be blurring a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that it was further in. And they were doing so this released in like September of 89, I feel like, maybe November. So when I saw these shows, I'm pretty sure it was like December and January. It hadn't been out for very long. And back then it was pre-internet and this stuff wasn't being played on the radio, so they were playing songs. There was definitely some stuff from the previous album, The Land of Rape and Honey, and also Twitch. But I'm almost positive that Thieves was in a little bit further.
And that sounds like an absolutely wild experience. Is that one of the crazier shows that you've been to?
Yeah, and I get asked all the time, like, what's your favorite concerts? What's your favorite shows? That always springs to mind because it was just the energy. I blame those concerts for some of my hearing loss specifically because I was young and dumb and didn't wear hearing protection in 89 and 90. I learned, but yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to learn that lesson as well.
I always do. Yeah, I will not go anywhere without hearing protection. But that show or that tour and like Bad Brains was always up there really high for live shows. Fishbone. I mean, there's a bunch, but this is definitely at least in the top 3 probably of live shows. And I've seen everybody, or I used to anyway.
I know you had a list that you're trying to whittle down for top opening tracks. You want to share some of the others that you were trying to decide between?
Yes, I do. I really, really struggled with this because I just kept coming up with more and more and more. Okay. One of the big ones was Killing Joke Requiem from the first self-titled album. I think that really sets the pace for what they were about. If you listen to that album, you will be a lifelong fan. Even though they change a little bit in their style, that's consistently Killing Joke. It's just very melodic and dub, and it's fantastic. I also went the other direction with something more gentle. Not everything I listen to is so extreme, but Nick Cave, Do You Love Me from the album Let Love In. That's my favorite Nick Cave album, and that song, it's so good. It's so, so good. I miss I love the stuff that Nick Cave is doing now with Warren Ellis, but his harsher carnival barker street preacher era stuff is my favorite, and that is just it's like gritty and dirty and sexy and just real and beautiful at the same time. Those were my 2 really big other contenders, but there were a bunch more. Okay, I will mention this one because I really thought this was another one I was going to go for was Santi Gold from her self-titled album, the song Les Artistes, Les Artistes. I preach the gospel of Santi Gold all the time, and I think that she does not get the props and the recognition that she deserves because she's amazing. And that song, when I heard it, I remember the first time I heard it, it just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, what the fuck is this? Amazing. She's amazing. She deserves more attention, I think.
Yeah, you don't hear that name often.
No, and she has a recent album, but she was going to tour, and she's one of those artists that said that she couldn't afford to tour. That's a whole thing right now with artists saying that they just can't make any money,
Yeah.
even though she's not a small venue, she's not a huge venue, she's medium, and she said that she just couldn't do it. So, yep.
Yeah, it's a weird time right now, especially the venues taking significant portions of merch cuts and all that.
I mean, I'm not a musician, and I know that you are, and you do touring and stuff like that. But half my friends are touring musicians or
Yeah.
musicians, and I hear it from them too. That right now, especially any venue that takes a merch cut, I will not support them.
Yeah.
Period. Because if they're taking money out of the pockets, one of the few ways that working bands can make money, absolutely not.
I just learned that a prominent venue around here takes a merch cut, and I'm kind of pissed about it, but
I mean, it puts the bands in an awkward place. You may still have to do it, but as a fan, I can go up to that owner and say, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" Because I'm not worried about losing my job or anything. You guys are put in an awkward position. But with the advent of things like Spotify and Google Play and stuff, how are musicians supposed to make any money? You're not making any money that way, that's for sure.
at least for us, the goal is just to make it pay for itself at the end of the day, and it's not the most easy thing to do, but
I mean, at least there is a resurgence in people collecting physical media.
that is true.
So if you put out cassettes or CDs or vinyl, if you can afford that initial upfront cost and recoup it, that is a way to generate some revenue. I talk about this stuff probably too much on my channel, but I'm really
Hey,
big on supporting bands and musicians and independent labels,
yeah, that's great. And then you have how many thousands of records?
About five-ish.
Okay. Do you have everything cataloged? What's your
Oh, absolutely not. No, it drives everybody crazy. My records are not in order. I do have some groupings, like right here is Gang of Four. All my ministry is right here, but yeah, no. Like my metal is in one of the other shelves, but yeah, it drives people insane because I'll have like Al Green next to Conan, next to Sleep, next to I don't know whoever ministry. It doesn't. Yeah, there's no organization.
I mean, sometimes listening to those albums in that order just feels right.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody could get in here, I don't let anybody touch my shit. But if I let anybody in here, it would be a smorgasbord of fun because you never know. Like you go down and pull stuff and be like, "What?"
Well, you've been collecting since the 70s, is that correct?
Yeah, the first record I bought was I think '79. I was about
Okay.
9. I saved up my allowance and bought an Earth, Wind and Fire record,
All right.
but for vinyl. But I had also previously bought cassettes because I could afford that, and I was also living in Kenya. We were in Africa, so it wasn't as easy to like get as much physical merch. But I remember buying ABBA cassettes, and Boney M was really big when I was 8. But yeah, my eldest brother was a big music. He's a bass player in a punk rock band, or was, and he was a big vinyl guy too. So I would listen to his records. That's what kicked off this nonsense, I think.
I wouldn't say it's nonsense. I think it's amazing, and I love watching your channel as you go through them. What inspired you to start a TikTok channel, and I guess what's that been like for you?
It's weird. The main reason that I did it is we were in the pandemic. I wasn't working at the record store anymore, and I just missed talking to people about music. I figured I've got all this stuff, so why not actually talk about it? Because I've been watching TikTok videos for a while. So my channel is like a year and a half old. Yeah, it's about a year and a half old. Yeah, it's mostly missing the interaction of talking to people in person and being an enabler and a force for making people like other music. I mean, you know what I mean, or just talking to people who are also music nerds. So that was the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a whole. It took me a little while to get on the TikTok train, but once I realized how good it is at creating these niche communities, I think
Hmm.
that's the cool gold behind TikTok. Is there is this whole music nerd TikTok subgroup that seems very active, and it's awesome.
Just having a lack of community in general with everything going on, it's been really beneficial to my mental health.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Plus, my channel has grown slowly but steadily, which is the way I like it. Anytime I get anything that gets semi viral, I'm like, oh shit. because I mean, it's fine. I'm not complaining about it, but you might get an influx of people who are not really going to want to stick around or be as interested, which is fine. You can be a casual TikTok user, but I like that my growth has been slowly steady and the community has really grown. Like usually do lives on Sunday nights and did one last night, and I have a core group of people that show up every weekend and we just, talk about music and give each other hell, and it's just a good time. So,
That's awesome. Have anything that you've discovered because of the TikTok channel?
oh my God, I have become friends with so many bands and musicians. I mean, I found you, and now I have your music, for Doomsday Prophet, and labels, some label makers and PR people, but man, I have found so much great music on TikTok. There are so many bands that are on the channel, and you're like, what? I've never even heard of these people. And there's like famous people that are on here too, like Radiohead, but it's the discovery of people that I would never have found otherwise.
Do you follow Matt Pike?
I do follow Matt Pike. I haven't seen him in a while. Is he still putting stuff out?
He put out some photos or some videos of, or maybe they were photos of him. He got in I think a bike accident or something. So he was posting pictures of his wounds, which when I first started seeing content from Matt Pike, I was like, this is someone pretending to be Matt Pike. But then you look at the videos and it's definitely Matt Pike. He doesn't have a ton of followers.
Yeah, Matt Pike from Sleep and High on Fire. Oh my God, that is so crazy. I did have on my list, I had Dragonaut by Sleep from their album Holy Mountain. That was a contender as well.
That's a good one.
Talking Heads just joined, and
Really?
Jewel is on here. I was not that into Jewel, but her TikTok channel is amazing. Very genuine and very cool.
It's interesting to see how bands are using TikTok as a platform. I'm still trying to honestly figure it out on my end, but it's interesting the different approaches that bands will take, if it's more advice or if it's showing day in the life kind of things or live
I will
performances.
say, as a consumer, as instead of a musician, that I really like bands or musicians' TikTok channels where it's I want to see a slice of life or a tour. But if you're sampling or sharing your music to do not just one song and one song only, and to do like a slightly longer than 15-second clip so we can hear a little bit more, that's just from my end. But I like all of it. Like the German band Plane Ride, they're a hard rock kind of metal band. They're so great, and they covered all the TikToks of their most recent tour with Corrosion of Conformity.
Plane Ride Guides, I connected with them, and I actually went to Desert Fest Berlin in May, and they played there, and I walked up and I was like, hey, Ryan, Doomsday Prophet, TikTok, and he was like, ah, cool. And it was this weird kind of moment that we'd had these interactions on this video app, but then
it was real life.
it was
That's
real
so
life.
cool.
Yeah. And actually, I think Brenna from Crystal Spiders hooked them up with that connection with COC, I think, because Crystal Spiders recorded both their records with Mike Dean. So it's cool to see that kind of like North Carolina, Germany connection. I love it.
You say North Carolina, and I'm just like, Buzz Oven? Buzz Oven? I love them. I love, love, love Buzz Oven. I've seen them a bunch. I have a ton of merch and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was way into this whole sludge.
Yeah.
I Hate God,
Yeah.
Acid Bath, Buzz Oven, all those guys. I was like way into that in the early 90s. So,
I mean, there was a rich scene.
there was a rich scene. I missed that scene. That
Yeah.
scene was chaos.
Yeah. I don't think it has the same edge now.
No. Speaking of TikTok music people, I really love Goth Dad from Vision Video. The Goth, I don't know if you know him. His channel is really good because he'll do tour stuff and just talking stuff, and he's just very supportive and inclusive and funny and awesome. I think he's another really good TikTok channel. And for a new discovery, there's a band called Nasty Party from Australia. They're on Bandcamp, but they don't have any physical media, and they are amazing. They're kind of like a post-punk new wave Australian duo that's just highly, highly recommended. Nasty Party. Yeah, I'm gonna do a
That's
video about them soon.
awesome. I look forward to it. I'll link to it in the show notes so people can go watch that one. My favorite record is the record that I haven't heard yet. I think that's always kind of how I go through.
That's a good philosophy in music nerddom life.
Yeah, yeah.
The best thing that, yeah, I agree.
I'm always hungry for new stuff.
Hungry for new stuff, yeah. Bandcamp has become a major source of new music for me. I evangelize Bandcamp because it's free. You can purchase stuff that will really support the band, physical media, but man, that is a great place to discover new music. It's a rabbit hole of listening to one thing to another, and then all of a sudden you have some record from some band in Slovenia that you would have never heard of before. Omega Sun is a doom metal band from, I think, Slovenia, yeah, someplace in Eastern Europe that I found on Bandcamp, and they're also on TikTok. But man, that is a great place to find music is Bandcamp. So
I love that platform. To your point, it's perfect for discovery. The radio show that I do probably wouldn't exist if it weren't for Bandcamp, because it makes it so easy to find bands from far reaching places that
mhm.
otherwise couldn't. Yeah. I'll preach Bandcamp all day long. Yeah.
I do too. I preach Bandcamp and Discogs all damn day. Speaking of finding bands online, what is going on in France? There are so many awesome bands across genres coming out of France right now.
I don't know, but the first curated show that I had for Global Garage was the owner of Frantic City Records, who put out some amazing compilations. Hamburger, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, Hamburger Sagnant or something along those lines. There's a 1 and a 2, and it's these garage punk compilations that are phenomenal. And
Mm.
that the curated playlist that he did just opened up so much for me. It's wild. My wife and I went to Paris more than a few years back now, but we went into the Born Bad record shop, and I was the guy at the counter. Actually, no, I take that back. The first time it was with my work, we had we do a mystery trip thing where we'll show up at the airport, and they're like, we're going here, and one of them was Paris, and I was like, all right, let's go check out Born Bad. So I walked up to the record store. I went to the guy at the counter, and I was like, so here's the thing, I do this radio show, garage psych, etc., recommendations, and he stacked me up with 10 or 15, and one of them was that compilation that I listened to, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I had to reach out to the guy that put it together, and that came from there. But also in that was, I think, the first and Attendant Anna record.
Okay.
Incredible. So I went back a year later with my wife. I went back, and it was the same guy at the counter. I was like, hey, remember me? And he was like, yeah. And he gave me, 10 more recommendations, and just like the wealth of stuff coming out of there. Just, yeah, as you said, cross genre. There's some weird creative, and it's off kilter stuff too. It's like,
Right. More experimental.
yeah, like you're listening to it. Oh yeah, this is garage punk, but there's something off about it. Not in a bad way. It's just
Slightly French askew.
yeah, I could listen to something and not know that it's French, and I feel like I could probably identify that. Yeah, this is probably a French
I'm kind of
artist.
getting to that point. It's like, is this French? What the hell is happening? But I love that. And that's another thing working in record stores. I miss the customer coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm interested in this. Do you have any recommendations?" And I'm like, "Oh, get out your wallet because I'm about to wreck your life."
How much time do you have? And money.
How much time and or money? Yeah.
Do you have any stories from those record store days?
I think one of the funniest stories to me, oh my God. So I was working in a record store, and we got in a collection. Well, we had to go to his house. This very strange dude who had the best heavy psych collection, obscure garage and psych kind of bands I have ever seen in my life. Original 13th Floor Elevators, just all of that kind of stuff. Toe Fat, just a bunch of stuff I had never heard of. Anyway, The records were in good condition. Some of the covers were, a little beat used, but overall it was a fantastic collection. And the owner of the store negotiated and we got that collection. However, the gentleman's name was Skip, and he wrote his name on every single cover. So it said Skip.
Oh no.
Which is not a word that you want to see on a record cover, because I literally had hundreds of conversations with people coming in and going, "Oh, I was really looking for that Toe Fat album. Oh, does it skip?" I'd be like, "Oh, no."
Oh,
The guy who owned it was named Skip, and he wrote his name over and over and over and over and over. It was hilarious. It got to the point where I was just like, well, okay, sure. All right. But it was like the perfect storm of like very high end, very expensive, very cool stuff that had the word Skip on the cover. God damn, that dude.
That's hilarious.
Just a million little things go, yeah, like that. But that's one of my favorites. That I mean, at the time I was not amused, but now looking back, it's pretty funny.
The one word you don't want on there. Yep. Oh,
no, absolutely. I mean, it might as well have said Warped. Hey, my name is Warped, and put it on the front.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about? Anything that you want to shout out or promote?
Just back to Ministry for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
They are touring. I think they might have been touring for this entire album, but something of note is I mentioned the Ministry very first album with Sympathy, which is very synth pop, very cheesy, very I love it, but Al Jorgensen uses a fake English accent. He denied and shunned that album forever. Like, he would get angry if anybody tried to bring it up. He was very, very hostile. But just recently, he has revisited it, and his bandmates have convinced him to, I think they're going to re-record all of it. They've re-recorded a couple songs and reissue with Sympathy. And I hope, I don't know what they're going to name it, but really, if they named it without Sympathy, with a new updated version of those songs, would be so fucking cool. That would be the coolest. But anyway, I think it's kind of interesting because he's saying that he's almost done with his career. It would be a nice beginning and end. But if you've never heard this, if anybody's listening to this, go listen to The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste and listen to Thieves. And if your socks aren't blown off, I will give you a refund. I won't give you a refund. But if you like harder music, this is the shit right here. Absolutely fantastic.
And fantastic addition to the opening tracks playlist. Thank you so much for talking through that. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Kudani for that conversation. Go follow her on TikTok at Kudanii and check out her wealth of music knowledge and massive collection that you just got the iceberg tip of here today. Also, thank you so much for listening. Speaking of that wealth of knowledge, there are a lot of show notes in the transcript. There are a bunch of Bandcamp embeds and YouTube embeds. So if you want to experience a lot of the music that we talked about here today, you can do so at letsmixtape.com. Of course, be sure to listen to the Season 1 playlist as we continue to build it out, either on Spotify or YouTube. Theme music is by the one and only Scotty Sandwich. Make sure to subscribe so you'll hear my conversation next week with indie musician and Tiny Telephone recording owner John Vanderslice. It's a fun chat. I'm very excited to share it with you. And if you like what you're hearing, please rate the show, as it does help the podcast get discovered. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you next week.